G'day guys, welcome back to Beers and Breakevens, brought to you by Bloke in a Bar. Denon dropped his new beer last week, mid-strength. It is a cracking drop. We got stuck into it last week at the live show out there at Homebush before Origin 1. A few of you were out there, came and said hello. It was good to see. A few people showing off their Supercoach teams to us and whatnot. It was a good little giggle. Welcome back, mate.
Mate, I could not believe the amount of women coming up to you wanting photos. It was relentless.
I had a lot of aunties there. It was good. Now, mate, ranks, scores. We're doing all right, eh? We both went plus 1,300 last week. I got 1,375, yourself 1,332. We're sitting all right.
Mate, I feel like in my battle to catch you, like a heavyweight boxer coming in, throwing every punch that I can, but nothing's landing to catch you. Let's be fair, bantamweight boxer maybe, but cannot catch you for the life of me.
Well, mate, the one week that you did catch me, you pissed off on a little holiday. So cocktails, feet up.
Lesson learnt, no more holidays.
Absolutely loved it. So at the moment, I'm ranked 42nd overall. I jumped up about 40 spots into the top 50. How are you travelling?
147th overall. So, yeah, getting there. Pretty well placed around 17. We'll have a good chat about that later and how we're attacking that because strategies have changed a little. But, yeah, not too far off the top spot and a little bit of work to do, but well enough placed.
I have flipped like a fucking fish when it comes to round 17. My strategy has changed just about every week. I think I'm sort of going to ease off it a little bit now too.
Yeah, I'm thinking a little bit similar. There just looks to be a lack of guns and even a lack of blokes that we was probably certain were going to be playing round 17. There's a few question marks around blokes. So with the rep round next weekend, happy to sort of sit back and maybe have a little bit of a look this week.
So, mate, both into the top 150 now. We both got 15 trades left. Getting a little bit excited just quietly.
Yeah, I know. It's getting to that point, isn't it, where you sort of start thinking, what if this goes my way and that goes my way, that becomes a little bit of a reality. Might be able to go take the top spot. We know how quickly Supercoach can change, but while it can change for the worse, it can change for the good as well. So if a few things fall, who knows?
Now, speaking of changing for the good, Matty has turned his phone on in the last 2 weeks. He's made the occasional trade, which has been nice. Matty, how are we going?
Yep, I've made my trades in the last 2 weeks, so I'm back on track. So I'm floating around that 38,000 mark, which I have been for the last few weeks, but I was almost 50,000 a few weeks ago, so coming in hot. I got 1,150 this week.
Yeah, if you're not winning early, if you are winning early, you're not winning late, so you'll be there and thereabouts.
How many trades, mate?
24.
You're such a shit bloke sometimes. It fucking shits me. Apologies, we missed last week too. Had a bit of a scheduling clash. We had the live show, obviously, so there was a million things going on. But we are back and ready to rip in today. Let's have a look at the group and the Beers and Breakevens group, which has been closed off now. We mentioned on the podcast last week, so we have closed that off. We've got screenshots of the top few thousand there. So that is closed off now. So the people that were in it last week are the only people that will be able to win the $2,000 cash prize, including myself and Timmy. We're in the hunt just quietly. We're coming for you. So we've got to work out if we do win what we're going to do there. But as it stands right now, Alex, the bearded clams, met one of your mates at the live show the other day. We'll have to get in contact, I think, and have a chat about how you're travelling. Second overall. I think he's been second for about 3 weeks on the trot now. Pretty good knock there from the bearded clams. We've got Daniela, who's 11th overall, doing very well, just outside the top 10, second in our group. Rob, he's 15th overall, third in our group. Porch Light, Sam, he's back. He's rerelevant once again. 27th overall, fourth in our group. Peter, Pistol Pete's, he's 33 overall, fifth in our group. And, ninth. No shoot for you. Must be a handy team, mate. In the top 10.
Enjoy your moment in the sun, mate, because it won't last long.
Mate, fuck, it has taken a lot of work to get into the top 10 of this goddamn group. I cannot believe how difficult it has been. 25 out of the top 100 in our group. That's a quarter of the top 100. How good?
It's a good go, mate, and you'll find pretty quickly that if you do maintain this rank for a while, sleepless nights, everything. I mean, you live and breathe footy and Supercoach and that already. Mate, if you're top 10 with 5 or 6 rounds to go, you won't know yourself. Looking forward to it.
Shout out as well to Daniel, Dan's Dominators. He topped our group this week, 1,501. He actually topped the entire Supercoach. So a sneaky G coming your way, Dan. Very well done. Mate, should we rip and tear into some team lists?
Let's do it, mate.
All right. Now, Thursday night, the Bunnies, they take on the St George Illawarra Dragons. Not a heap of news out of this one. Latrell's still not there. One positive for South Sydney fans, Mamazelos. He drops out of this side, so you'd have to assume that Cookie, he will go the full 80 there, which is a little win for Damien Cook owners. Dragons, not much doing there. I'm close to putting the red Sharpie through Dragons this year. Outside of those two centres, I don't think I can even look at any of them realistically.
That's it. They're such an uninspiring Supercoach side to go with this season, and they'd really need a pretty dramatic turn in form. Despite that round 17 coverage, there's a lot of people looking at Sully, not keen on him. Lomax is one that, look, he had a bit of a stinker on the weekend. He's got the Supercoach pedigree. He's a gun. So potentially, but again, playing for a bottom 8 side and one that I can see dropping off worse, not for me.
Yeah, not for me either. Friday night, we got the Manly Seagulls taking on the North Queensland Cowboys. For Manly, DCE returns. Joshy Schuster still on the bench. Disappointing for anyone that has him, but as someone that doesn't have him, I'm excited about getting him in a month's time when he's playing 80 minutes on the edge.
There's a few blokes, obviously Schuster included, that are going to be dirt cheap come sort of round 18, 19 when we're setting our teams for the run home. And shout out to Andrew Davey for holding that spot and keeping Schuster out, because he doesn't even realise it, but he's doing wonders for a lot of super coaches.
Mate, he's playing good footy too, Davey.
They love Davey at Manly. Every time they can get him a start, he does. Then he gets injured, concussed, something goes wrong and he drops out. But when he's fit and firing, they don't.
For the Cowboys, Cotter, Nanai, they are back. Now, Lume Lu, he's available at centre wing in Supercoach. He's been named in the back row, which when I saw teamless yesterday, it got harder than a fucking cat's head. But Luciano Leilua, it was announced yesterday that he has been released by the Tigers. He will be up there soon. So Lume Lu sort of falls out of relevance there. But Luciano Leilua, we'll talk about him a little bit later. But you got to keep your eyes on him, don't you?
Big time. And what a signing for the Cowboys mid-season.
As if they needed fucking help.
Yeah. Oh, they need another. I know Lukey got injured, but yeah, we've just signed one of the best back rows in the NRL. So, Supercoach-wise, we know how solid he is. It's a shame for us that the Cowboys have played their buy-round match. They won't be available for 17, but for the run home, I can see him come in and basically playing that Lukey role, 50 minutes off the bench. But, look, if he gets the minutes there, it could be anything.
Mate, as we're both Taumalolo owners and very happy Taumalolo owners, are you worried about Cotter coming back in?
Not really, because Taumalolo isn't impacted by Origin in the rep period. He looks fit. He's playing some phenomenal football. I think Cotters and Nanai, to a lesser degree, will be managed through this Origin period. They won't, because the Cowboys are doing so well, Todd Payton won't feel the need to play them big minutes. I think that'll be for Taumalolo and a few others. So, yes, his minutes will drop a little bit, but not concerned.
The Storm take on the Broncos on Friday night. For the Melbourne Storm, the big news, Jersey 21, Ryan Papenhuyzen returns. We will talk about him a little bit later. Anderson, he holds on to his spot, but if Papi comes back in, you would have to assume that one of these wingers loses their spot. What are your thoughts on Anderson?
Yeah, look, he looks a very much potential buy, but I've seen a lot jumping on this week. It just seems very premature to me. Yeah, he was good last week, but there's every chance Papi comes in, Meaney goes to the wing, Anderson drops out of that side, and then he becomes, like, if I'm making trades at the moment, I want them tailored towards out-and-out guns or round 17 coverage. So if you get Anderson in, yeah, he'll free up some cash, but if he doesn't play round 17, it just seems like a wasted trade for me. So with a few dominoes to fall and whether Jeremiah gets dropped or Anderson, let's just wait and see. He's only played the one game, Anderson, so even just wait till next week.
I think a lot of people are very excited that he will play round 17, but, I mean, if Papi's back, I don't think he does realistically.
I don't think he does either. And the other one is your boy, Will Warbrick, who I'm just waiting for him to get a run. Every time he's had a chance to get a run, he's had an injury issue. Bellamy came out and said last week that he wasn't considered due to injury. I don't think it's anything major. So just another one looming there that I'm like, all right, hold fire. Wait for it.
Yeah, we mentioned last week too, Jack Howarth. He's obviously gone back to Queensland Cup. He is playing centre down there. He was playing back row earlier in the season. So a lot of moving pieces there for Anderson. I think he could do worse as enough, but Geez, I'm far from convinced he's going to play in 17. For the Broncos, Haas, Katoni Staggs, Capewell, they're all back in. You've obviously got Herbie Farnworth. He's going to miss the rest of the season, essentially. Branko Lee comes into the centre spot there. We've got a question about him later, so we'll talk about him soon. Saturday, the Sharks take on the Gold Coast Titans. Finucane, he's been named in the extended bench. Outside of that, Cronulla are 1-17. Finucane doesn't really impact us all that much. I was worried about McInnes, but I think they've played a few times together now, and it's shown that McInnes is pretty safe, isn't it?
He's very safe, yeah. But I mean, as a prospective buyer, I feel a lot better with obviously Finucane not in that team. So, look, 580k, Cam McInnes, break even 43. He'll be rock solid for us, but I am happy to wait and see what sort of impact Finucane does have on his minutes. And another one I'll be looking at maybe for 16, 17 if he continues to punch out good scores, which he should, but I'm happy not to jump on early.
Yeah. Brimson, he returns. He was out with COVID last week, so he returns to the Gold Coast Titans. Less said the better about the GC.
Yeah, move on.
Warriors taking on the Panthers. My boy Ronald Volkman makes his debut in the 5'8 jersey. Great to see. In Supercoach, he's available at halfback. It'll be interesting if he plays this week, and if he plays the next 3 weeks at 5'8, he might actually be able to grab 5'8 dual come.
You're doing a Supercoach.
Fucking I know. They don't let you into the top 43 for no reason, let me tell you.
Wouldn't have had that come round 3.
No. Volkman, though, very talented player. Obviously, will take on the Penrith Panthers this week, so a pretty tough gig for your very first game. It's an interesting time to bring him in because they play the Panthers and then we have rep rounds. They have a bye coming up, so he's only really going to play 2 games over the next month. Not that impacts us Supercoach-wise all that much. Ewan Aitken, he's also out. I've got him in my side. He's about to lose a bit of money, Aitken, so I'm actually kind of happy he's not named this week. Then I can just hold for a week, see what I can do. And Joshy Curran in the 13, we mentioned Josh Schuster will be a little bit cheaper in a couple of weeks. Curran, I would have liked to have seen him come off the pine for an extra week, but I'm not sure if he plays 80 minutes here still.
Yeah, he's a massive watch for the run home, isn't he? Because we know what he's capable of Supercoach-wise. Averaged, I think, 70-odd on the run home last season when he was getting those bigger minutes. So once he's back and healthy, he's a guy that I'd a real pod for the last sort of 6 or 7 rounds.
All right, Penrith, they are 1-17. No changes there. Parramatta Eels versus the Roosters. Momorowski out, Billy Smith in. If you're someone that has still held Billy Smith, you'd be happy, but I've been a huge Billy Smith fan for the last couple of years. He's been less than impressive this year, realistically.
He has in limited enough opportunity. He's had his chances, particularly early on in the season, in a Roosters side that were struggling particularly badly. That being said, he's still playing in one of the better teams in the NRL, so I'm waiting for a breakout game for him on what we've seen in the past, but yeah, he needs to fire, doesn't he?
Now, mate, a question for you, just looking at this Roosters bench. Watson, Hutcho, Egan Butcher, Fletcher Baker. Does this spell a bit of trouble for one of their back rowers, considering that Sam Verrills is already starting? You're worried about a Butcher, a Satilli. I assume Angus is safe, but it's a bit of a weird bench to run into this Parramatta side who are... It's like 5 fridges in their forward pack.
Yeah, look, mate, think of it off, as a wise man refers to it as the dome, straight off the top of the dome. The bench makeup doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't see why they need Watson and Hutchinson, so I can see potentially a change there for another, I don't know whether they'd go like a backline utility or another forward on the bench, probably another forward, but as that stands, yeah, it's an odd bench makeup, isn't it? Because
it's very strange.
Because with Watson there to deputise for Verrills, they don't need Hutcho because Watson can also play in the halves. We'll see how the bench lines up on game day, but yeah, as far as the back row goes, someone probably gets spelled. Let's hope it's Satilli. Well, Satilli owners won't think that, but I think most will be moving him on anyway. Lotto and Angus Crichton, so he'll be the big watch. Yeah,
it's a weird bench regardless, but against Parramatta, bold play.
Yeah.
Parramatta, they remain 1-17 after getting slapped last week. What the fuck was doing there? That was insane, wasn't it?
Supercoach-wise, so firstly, absolutely stuffed my perfect round. I jokered it, put the double points on and everything, and I thought I was locked in. Supercoach-wise, though, as a bloke who only owned Isaiah Papali'i, there were players such as Mike Acevo, Mitch Moses, Dylan Brown, who I just thought I was terrified, thinking they could all turn up in it. And to watch the doggies come out and belt them, it was just like, it was a Great Supercoach Sunday.
We did the commentating on the Hijack app, and we had $100 on the same game multi. It was returning about 7K, and it was very Parramatta heavy. And I think if we missed one leg, we got our money back, and we were 2 from 4 legs. The last 2 legs were Sean Lane trying to Mitch Moses. So Mitch Moses crossed, and we went, oh sweet, we'll get our money back.
Yeah.
Then the ball got knocked out of his fucking hands. Could not believe it. I was absolutely shattered. Devastating stuff. Sunday, the Raiders take on the Newcastle Knights. Your boys in lime green. I'm expecting a big bounce back from the Canberra Raiders. I thought they were pretty good last week. I think they can really put a score on the Knights here. Rapana returns on the wing. No other changes to your boys?
No, nothing major in that one at all. So obviously Josh Papali'i starts for them after coming off the bench last week, which doesn't impact too much. Possibly the minutes of Joe Taffney, but with his form, I don't think Ricky will be in a position to play in less minutes. They have a stack of depth in the forward pack, a big forward bench, but they need to win games. And Taps, after playing mid 40 minutes earlier in the season, is now up to sort of mid 50 to 60 minutes, and surely it stays that way.
For the Newcastle Knights, Kurt Mann, he returns in the 13 jersey. Good to see. And Fitzy, for the first time in his fucking career, seemingly, he's been dropped. I can't believe it.
I know. I didn't think it could happen, but here we are.
He always just seems to hang on, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Bizarre. He'd be filthy, I reckon. The Bulldogs taking on the Tigers, the last game of round 15. We've got TPJ. He's named in the 13 jersey. Maxi King moves into the front row. If you're still a Max King owner, which I am, fuck, you're stoked with how that's played out over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm an owner as well, and I haven't been playing him, but happy to see that cash flow in. 3-round average of 63 points, break even 22 up to 430k, so that is some serious extra money coming into our bank accounts. The cap now looking pretty good, and one that, I have every intention of moving on before round 17 just because I'm happy with the depth of my squad, and I'm trying to replace probably borderline keepers with genuine keepers, or maybe the occasional nuff down the track. King, I just can't see myself playing him too often this season, but you could do, as long as he keeps getting these minutes of, 56 the last 3 games, you could do a lot worse than hold on to him.
Was HIA affected last week? I believe it was Patolo. They got a HIA, but, mate, still, these are the sort of performances that he can do, and let's be honest here, it's not that odd to get a HIA in a game nowadays. So I can see myself doing a Max King to a Schuster or a Curran in a couple of weeks, which would be very nice. It's been bizarre, mate. I remember looking at my front row forward all season just going, this is shocking. All of a sudden, Tapane, Taumalolo, Papali'i, it's looking pretty sweet now.
It is all of a sudden. And so I've got Papali'i and Taumalolo there as well. Maxi King, he's my first reserve. So, to get rid of him, I'd need another decent option to replace the starting boys should they go down.
It's worked out very well. Stoked with it. For the Tigers, Luciano Leilua, he leaves, as we said. Tuolagi, he comes in the back row. Adam Dewey on the bench. Tuolagi's got trap written on his forehead to me. What do you reckon?
Oh, for sure, mate. I'm not going near it. I sold a long time ago. Plenty did. People will be thinking, maybe locks down that 80-minute roll again, round 17 coverage, but I know it's a little bit harsh on him because he's only in, I think, his second year of the NRL, but something always goes wrong. Players like Jazz Tavanga, Tavita Pangai Jr., blokes in this category where no matter how good they're looking, no matter how good their Supercoach credentials are looking, something always goes wrong, and that's been Tuolangi this entire year. Yeah,
I'll happily leave him. Adam Dewey, though, he's another guy that in a few weeks' time he could be very interesting. It sort of depends on where he plays. Obviously, you'd rather him at 5'8", but I think that's looking reasonably unlikely. I think he'll probably be at right centre, which still, if you're going to be in the Tigers side, you want to be on that right edge.
Yeah. Him and, to a lesser degree, David Nofaluma are the only people I'd slightly consider at the Tigers, and I would not be doing it until round 17 either. Dewey, obviously coming back from that ACL injury, look, traditionally, 99 out of 100 players come back from ACLs, and it takes a lot of time for him to come good. So he'd need to put on some serious performances to be considered, but Supercoach pedigree alone and what he did last year, if he does come back firing, he'll be an option. Yeah,
he could be anything, especially towards the back end without having a look at their draw, just getting it up now. Is it all right? They got Sharks, Roosters. Yeah, it's not ideal. All right, we'll keep an eye on Dewey, but let's move to some hot topics, mate. The first one, Ryan Papenhuyzen. He's been named Jersey 21 this week. Very, very exciting. I didn't get a chance to listen to the Supercoach playbook last night, so I haven't really heard your thoughts on Papi as it stands. I've got the money to bring him in this week. I look at the 140 break even. I think he will lose a little bit of coin this week. I don't know if he gets the goal kicking straight away, coming back with a hamstring injury. I'm low-key sort of hoping he doesn't get the goal kicking week 1. Lose a little bit of cash. We could probably get him around, 900K next week, maybe the week after. That's sort of my avenue. I'm going to sit on my hands this week and watch him. What's your play with Papi?
He's such an interesting prospect this week because I love going early on out-and-out guns when they're back for whatever reason. If it's a minor injury, the nature of injury has a big factor to play in it. But Papi, there's just a few issues, and you've mentioned most of them. Like, there's every chance he plays off the bench. Bellamy loves to bring blokes back off the bench from injury, so he could play 20, 25 minutes. We saw it last season, albeit a little different with his concussions, but was really eased back off the bench in limited time, so which would just be absolute gold for non-owners, because you'd be amazed at how many people held Papenhuyzen. I was on a podcast last night with a couple of the fellas, and they both had him, and it blew my mind. I was like, I knew there was people out there, but 2 out of 3 on one podcast. So they're sitting there licking their lips if he starts this week and go, how good. But for non-owners, yeah, if he plays off the bench the next couple of weeks, potentially not goal kicking, he could drop a heap of cash and just be prime real estate for round 17. The issue for me, and everyone is in a very different boat, is that I don't really have a cut and dry way of getting him in. So with my duels, I've got a lot of flexibility. So I've got Nico and Teddy at fullback, Cody and Munster at 5'8", Cleary and Ezra Mam at the halves. None of them players I want to trade out, but one of them will have to go for Papi if I want him in. So the obvious one there is Ezra Mam when he peaks to a fallen Papi, but Mam will be also playing round 17. So I'm basically banking on one of those 6 players, something to happen that would make them a sell between now and, say, round 17, be it injury, HIA, something like that. Otherwise, come round 17, I'm going to have a few big decisions to make. I won't be getting Papi in before then, barring injury. And one that was floated to me on the podcast last night was, which I'd never considered, but Nico Hines. And the reason behind that is that he'll be more than likely unavailable for round 17, whether he's off the bench for the Blues, whether he's 18th man. He's actually on 61, 51, 82, 50 the last 4 weeks, so nothing substantial there. Since his big flurry early on in the season hasn't been unreal. Now, he's a season-long keeper, but comes out of... won't play round 17 more than likely, then plays the Cowboys, Panthers, and then the Rabbitohs. So if you do need to find a way to get Papenhuyzen in via one of those blokes... I don't mind Hines as a sell. I'm not hoping I won't have to do it, but he could be my only option.
Yeah, I don't know about trading him out. I've looked at his run home too. He's got Dragons, Tigers, Manly, Bulldogs,
I'd
Newcastle.
be getting him back.
You're gonna have the trades to get him back.
It'd be about a month-long play.
Yeah.
And it'd be nervous through that period. But I'm happy enough in those games against the Cowboys and Panthers in particular that he doesn't go berserk and could potentially drop in cash and all of a sudden become a decent enough option.
I think in our position where you got 15 odd trades, or Matty who's got 1,000, you can definitely afford to do something like that. But if you're under probably 12 trades, I don't know if you can afford to.
Definitely not. Yeah, you need to have the trades to be able to do it, and it'll also we're going to get to it shortly. But how we're approaching round 17. I had been planning for a while to go gung-ho at 17 and just get maximum players, but with a lack of, as we said, genuine keepers emerging there, might be able to save 1 or 2 in that period, which makes the Hines trade more viable.
As you said, everyone's position is very different. I'm stoked with how mine's played out. I'm sort of thinking next week I'll go Nat Butcher to Papi. I can get him in via duels, move guys around. So definitely one less headache to deal with there.
So in your side, it'd be Drinky that'd go for him?
Well, no, I would get rid of Nat Butcher. Then I would move Siffer to the 2RF. Then I would move Ruben Garrick here, and then I could get him in. So Nat Butcher, he's the one that I'm probably looking to move on. Break even of 58.
Beautiful.
I've got enough cash to be able to do it. Or I could go Ewan Aitken, but what about Ewan Aitken? I'm not sure if I've got a question about him later. I like having him. He's a bit of a pod play. I mean, he came off in the 56th minute on the weekend. He scored 44, so he's in line for another 60. The thing that I like about Aitken now is that he's going to be on that left edge with Volkman there. I just think maybe there could be a bit of upside there. If you had Aitken, would you be selling him, or what are you thinking?
You like it, but... And I know you're a Volkman fanboy for good reason. On all the reports, he's a bit of a star, but does he also get a lot less ball? And I know SJ's been out of form, but SJ's going to demand a lot of ball in that side. So is Aitken's edge going to get less?
Maybe, yeah.
I suppose the one thing is, because Aitken's not playing this week and won't drop cash, if you can afford to hold a week, we can watch that Warriors game, see how much ball Volkman gets, see how Volkman looks, and then make a decision from there. Would I be selling? It's a really tough one because he's hardly problematic, isn't he? And I go on about this pretty often, but dual positioning is just so vital in Supercoach. And you don't realise how important it is until you need it.
Yeah.
And you sit there going, geez, it's just if I had a dual front row, second row here, or a dual hooker, second row forward. And I mentioned before with my options to get in Papi, I've got basically 6 options right now to trade to him purely because I've got duals in my side. So Aitken being dual CT dub second row forward, who can link with Tungos, Talakais and switch between there. When we go to the back end of the comp and we're running out of trades and there's injuries and whatnot, the flexibility to move them blokes around will be vital.
Yeah, for sure. And even when you have a look at my Papenhuyzen situation, that's what's made all the difference for me. Yeah, he's going to be an interesting watch over the next few weeks. By the way, whilst we're here, what about your boy Mulatalo? That's one of your best, just quietly.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate that.
That's up there with your Reece Walshes, your Scotty Drinkwater, some of the best on this show. But I'm stoked you talked me into that one.
Yeah, he just looked good, didn't he? The second try he scored that had no right to do it and just snuck over the line. And you're thinking initially it went upstairs as a no try, and you end up, no, can't be, not a chance in the world. With every little replay you watch, he's going, hang on,
maybe.
we're on here. And as super coaches, that's about a 30 to 35 point swing when all things are added up. So looking really good. The beauty of it as well, now 634K, games against the Titans and Dogs, you know, getting that little bit harder to get in for non-owners, and I still think he's a terrific buy.
Mate, thank God they had the grass cut short, where he could have been in trouble there, Mulatalo. It was that fucking close. Bees dick stuff. Before we get back to it as well, what about Kiraz and Kohler? Both crossing for meaties, big scores, both got negative break-evens now. I've held on to both of them. This could be a little saving grace coming towards the back
very
end.
well played. I had the decision to trade one of them to last week to Mulatalo, and I held Kohler. When he scored his, what it was, 70, 80 odd in Manly's game on the weekend, I thought masterstroke, because it was a tough one between who to sell. And then Kiraz came out and nearly tonned up, and I went, oh, bastard. But great thing, and they now become, they're still sells before round 17. I know people are a little hyped on Kiraz, but it was one game for the Dogs. Let's not get too excited. I think he had 20s or 30s in the 2 games prior to that.
Yep.
But they're going to bank some serious cash going into round 17, and they're prime candidates for that round 17 sell, with about another probably 2 to 250K minimum for those who held.
What's the bet that one of them scores 2 or 3 tries in the next 2 weeks and gives you a real headache for 17, whether you sell or not?
Very much hope it is cooler.
Very much so, yeah. All right. Now, we've mentioned it a few times now. We got a little bit off track there. Round 17. It's not too far away. As I said at the start, my strategy has changed like the tide. It is ridiculous. I can't make up my mind at the moment. I think I'm going to go a little bit easier on it. I will use a boost, so, I mean, that's going reasonably hard at it, I guess, but I'm not going to aim to have 15, 16. I'm going to try and have 11, 12, 13 players. How are you looking for it?
Yeah, my strategy's also been revised, and while I was looking at using close to max trades between 14 and 17 to set myself up really well for that round, I've now taken a bit of a back seat and gone, okay, there's not a lot of people I love this week. Just quietly, how's your salary cap looking right now?
What do you mean?
$500,000 in it.
Yeah. I've actually got a few less players than I thought for round 17 as well. I think I'll probably have 10 or 11.
So initially I was looking at sort of 15, 16, and I still may opt to go that way, but I just don't like a lot of buys this week. I'm looking at the most traded in not in my team right now. Grant Anderson, I don't want him. Joe Tapney, I'd like him, but I'm also happy to forego him for the fact that he doesn't play round 17. I'm happy with Taumalola and Papali'i in my front row. Brian Toto is a bloke we'll get to shortly, but I'm keen on, but also doesn't play around 17. Maybe Alex Johnston, but he's 660k, so hard to get in. And then Ryan Papenhuyzen, and we've had our thoughts on him. So with the rep round next weekend, injuries that can occur between now and round 17, origin selections, all sorts of different things, particularly if the Blues were to go down 2-0, Freddie could do anything to that team selection-wise, so that'll change a lot. So I'm happy to sit on my hands a little bit this week. I'll probably use one trade, and as I said, potentially two, but I've still got to work a few things out. But sit on my hands a little bit this week, get through this round, get through the rep weekend, reassess for round 16, and then with 2 boosts left, go hard should the buys emerge for round 16 and 17. If they don't emerge, well, maybe my numbers for round 17 will be about 13 players, and that might be okay because I'll have more trades for the run home to go really hard.
I think that round 17 is going to really separate boys from men here. It's going to be huge, isn't it?
Yeah, and the other thing I look at which makes me think, maybe I can go hard at it and burn these trades now is, like for my current side, I've got not playing in my 17 this week, Api Coruscant, Brandon Smith, Ezra Mam to a less degree, Katoni Staggs. So the depth is there where I'm like, I'm also looking at who I want to bring back post-round 17, and there's Harry Grant. I want to get, obviously, Papenhuyzen probably before then. Outside of them, there's not a lot of players. Like maybe Ryan Madison, pending his minutes, he'll probably need to come in at some point. But elsewhere, I think I'm going to get out of that period and be looking all right. Maybe Nico Hines if I trade him, but hopefully that doesn't need to happen. Interesting one.
Mate, if the dominoes fall your way on Katoni Staggs and he's playing round 17, that'd be a huge get. Katoni Staggs, one of your favourites?
Yeah, bit of a roller coaster with that bloke, but I had the option to sell him last week, and the option's still there to move him on this week to someone like Brian Toto. But with Latrell, I don't see why the centres for game 3 wouldn't be Latrell and Jackie Wyden. I mean, I know a few little things can change, but it seems pretty realistic. In which case, Staggs won't be playing Origin, or in that he might be in the extended squad, but he should be available for the Broncos in round 17. That's a gun that I've already got in my team playing there, so I was more than happy to hold. I don't want to play him this week. I think Brisbane might have a tough game next week as well. Happy not to play him. There's enough depth in my CT dub that I don't need to play him. But it'd be a handy number for that week.
If you're looking at State of Origin from a strictly Supercoach point of view with Katoni Staggs, are you hoping if Katoni Staggs does play game 2, are you hoping they win or they lose? It's tough because if they win, is Freddie going to change that team?
If they lose and Staggs has even an okay game, there's so many centre options there that he'll change it, yeah.
Okay.
Particularly with Latrell coming back there.
If they win and Staggs is in it, though, does Freddie change that team heading up to Suncorp?
Unless Staggs has a blinder, I think he does because Latrell. And you're not like Jack White was our best player in game 1, so they've got to be your centres, don't they?
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
But if Katoni kills it in game 2 and they win, no, they'll find maybe a different role for maybe Jackie White because he's so flexible. But yeah, as I said, Latrell and Jack.
There's a number of ways that it could go down. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Mate, is there anything else on round 17 you want to touch on?
Not sort of too much on that one, no. As I said, I do think it's a good week to sit back and see how things play out over the next 2 weeks, reassess, because I don't think there's a lot of great trade options emerging, not only for 17, but this week specifically. I know most of us are burning through trades at a pretty rapid rate, so the beauty of the boost is that in other years you'd go, all right, they've also added the extra trade for rounds, obviously 13 and 17. So other years you'd only have 2 trades for those weeks, or you might have had the super trade week last season after round 15. I think they used to do it. But we can now go boost, and get these extra trades up. So we don't need to panic and burn through them.
I love how you're assuming so many people have got boost left. I reckon we are in rare territory here. Mate, should we get in some questions from followers?
We will. I'll just one more on that, on the boost. If you do have one left, I think round 17 is the time to use it.
Yeah.
There's no way I'd be going before that, just because all those things I keep mentioning about taking the risk out of injuries, origin selections. Round 17, we know if players are going to be in that round and fit and firing, so I'll be looking to use 4 trades in that week, which means I can go softer in the next couple of rounds.
I think you're crazy to use it earlier, especially when a lot of these round 17 guys aren't out now keepers.
Yeah,
and they're round 17 guys.
And the other thing is, if we do go softer on trades between now and 17 with an eye to the back end of the season, that boost could also be invaluable around 18 when we're trying to get guns back into our team, so I don't mind it for then either.
Are you confident you'll use both of your boosts?
I used one last week
because
it allowed me, I think, to get Mulitalo in and a few lesser players out of my team, so it made sense because I had 3 left. Prior to that, which was an end-of-week decision, I didn't think I'd use all 3.
Yep.
Now I'm thinking that, I'll probably get through 2, particularly if I do save a trade this week. I'll feel pretty good about how many I've got left trades-wise, so I reckon I'll use them now.
So that'll leave, if you use those, that'll be 7 trades that you use altogether over the next in those 2 weeks. So that'll leave you with like 8 or something for the run home, 7 or 8.
7, yeah. So I'd use 7. Yeah, 7, which would leave me. So I was to do 1 this week and then 7 between 16 and 17. 8. That'd leave me with 7 trades from round 18 onwards.
You happy with that?
I'm happy with that because I've got the depth in my squad, which, I go on about it and how I plan for all this. If I had nuffs in my team or borderline players whose job security was an issue, I wouldn't because it can change so dramatically. But the way I've set it up, I'm happy with 7 trades from round 18 onwards.
All right. First question comes from @Alexander_Bruce. He says, Tungo to To'o before his price blows out. Now, To'o is one that I know you're very keen on. I'm keen to have this conversation. I'm not as high on him. I'll let you take the mic first. Tell us about To'o.
Well, just firstly on Tungo, I think he's a hold. Like, I really do. And there was a point earlier on in the season where I thought maybe not, but he only has 3 scores under 50 this entire season. They were a 34, a 31 and a 46, so hardly horrible. He has a 5-round average of 69 points. He's playing on the best edge in the NRL. He plays the Warriors this week and could go nuts. Penrith have a decent enough. It's a mixed draw after round 17s, but by that point we're going to have so much depth in our squads that you won't necessarily have to play him every week for games against, say, Melbourne and the Cowboys or whatever. But I just think he's a hold, and also that dual CT-dub second row, which we spoke about before. So I think he's a hold. Brian To'o, I think he's absolutely a buy, and I'm really tempted on him this week. 564k, break even of 8, plays the Warriors. I'm pretty confident he tons up this week. Unless it's one of them games where just everything goes down the left because they're having so much success, which can happen in games, particularly against the Warriors. We saw their right edge get dominated last week. But To'o, not ideal on the right, but 116 last week, 71 the week before that. He had 44 in base last week, 36 in base the week before that. His first game back from that lengthy injury, he had 51 in base against Parramatta, which is just mental. Last year, he averaged 84 points. I don't see, I'm really tempted that despite the fact he doesn't play around 17, to go early on him. I know you're not as keen, and I have no idea why.
Yeah, just on Isaac Tungo too, I've got him in my draft side and I've been very keen on him, as you all fucking know. I cannot see a world where I trade this guy out.
What does it achieve? How do you better your side?
Mate, he's scored 1 try in the last month on the best edge in rugby league and he's averaged 62.
Yeah.
I mean, what am I fucking missing? Yeah, I mean, and also from having him in draft, I watched him very closely. He's had about 9 tries taken off him this year that have gone upstairs and been taken off him. So that seems crazy to me. When I get to Brian To'o, my worry is that he's playing on that right edge now. I fucking hate relying on Stephen Crichton to shift the ball that way. I understand the base stats. They're very impressive. Obviously, that 51 against Parramatta. But I look at his other games this year. I mean, he's gone sub 50. What is it? 3 out of his 7 games. One of them was injury affected, granted, but he's got a 48 in round 1 where he played 80. He's got a 45 in round 10 where he played 80. A 29 in round 11 where he played 80. I don't know. I don't think he's a bad pick by any means, but I don't know. I'm just not convinced on him. I'm surprised you're so convinced on him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I am. And I get the Crichton factor, but the other thing, I was watching that Penrith game against Newcastle on the weekend. Yes, Crichton is a bit of a notorious ball hog, but that fend and flick out the back to his winger, he's developing so good. I think Toto got a double off it on the weekend, and Crichton's getting so confident in his game that I can see that becoming a staple of his game where he starts to do that a little bit more, and that becomes his pet play. Look, I think next podcast, we're going to be sitting here and you're going to be going, Timmy, you're right, mate. Toto's a must-have, and I'm scrambling.
Please.
I'm scrambling, and he's 650k, and I don't know how I can get him in.
I also just think the left side is just so strong. All their footy goes down that left edge.
I get that,
Look, I don't think he's a bad pick, but I'm not as keen on getting him in this week.
Do you see him as... where does he sit in your priorities post-Origin then?
I want to see... I probably want to watch Penrith a little bit closely and how they're going over the next few weeks. He'd be there and thereabouts, but... Okay, if you were me, I don't have Campbell Graham. Would you target Toto or Campbell Graham?
I'd be happy to go Campbell Graham as leading into round 17. I think that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, if he wasn't playing round 17, it was just even Steven, would you rather Graham or Toto?
Toto.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And another note on that, head-to-head players, I would definitely be getting in Toto this week. Overall players, they're a bit more round 17 focused and backing up from Origin, those sorts of things. But if I was head-to-head, he'd be straight in.
All right, you give me something to think about. Yeah, mate, you delivered on Mulatalo last week, so I might marinate on it for a couple of days and see how I go. Our next question, that was a cracker. I think we're heavily focused on and that actually was our next question from F. Woodcock. Thank you, mate. Toto or Graham? I didn't even see it. I just asked that question myself, so... Great minds think alike. Our next one comes from @NiceBarry1. What to do with Tungo and May? We've sort of spoken about Tungo. We both think he's a keeper. And personally, if I've got the opportunity to have the left centre and the left winger in the best team in the competition on the best edge in rugby league, need I say more? I'm going to hold both of them. Where do you sit?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke highly of holding Tungo before. May, I think he's twice the hold that Tungo is. And... he's averaging 69 for the season. The tries, they're just not going to stop coming. Again, this weekend, look, you'd be very, very brave to go against Cleary as captain this week, but Talion May, he will turn up this week and could score 2 or 3 tries. His base of 29 for a rookie winger is also very solid. We know how big the yardage is for the back three in that Penrith outfit, so... hold.
Mate, is there anyone in this Panther side you don't have fucking turning up this week? You hand them out left, right and centre.
Oh,
I think that's 3 you've given tons to this week.
I think Ivan Cleary's battling a little bit at the moment, so he might not, but he could come off the bench and turn up. Nothing that surprising.
All right. Now, I guess off the back of that, another thing that sort of worries me with Toto is I'm not sure if I want to have 2 wingers from the same side for the run home. Does that worry you at all?
Not a bit. No. People get concerned about having, sort of too many mouths to feed from the one team, but there are so many examples over the years of this just being so relevant. Nearly always when it's the better sides in the competition. So when you've got too many backline players from one side, if it's Penrith, they're going to put 30 and 40 points on most weeks, and there's a lot of points to go around, so it's fine. When it comes to forwards, I remember it might have even been last year or the year before, despite Brisbane being ordinary, there was a lot of good Broncos forward picks between, there was like Payne Haas, a cheapy sort of Jordan Ricky and a couple of others. There might have been a Pat Carrigan. And because they're in the forward pack, you knew they were going to get through their work and they could all score well at the same time. Where it becomes an issue is if you've got, say 3 or 4 backline players from a middling team like, say, a South Sydney or a Cronulla where, yeah, they're good, but it can also go wrong pretty quickly for them on their day and you're less convinced about it. That's where I worry. But for a team like Penrith, I'd put Melbourne in the same category. Melbourne, whose spine last year, off the top of my head, all averaged over 70 points per game, and that was with Harry Grant coming off the bench. It can happen and it's not something I worry about, no.
Fuck. All right, I'm going to have to think about it. Yeah. Okay, let's move off to the next one. Ben_White044. Should we be moving Nat Butcher and Gus for people playing in round 17? Nat Butcher, he's a definite for me. I will be moving him on. As I said, I'm going to hopefully move him to Papenhuyzen next week. Angus, I see him as a hold. Where do you sit on these guys?
Butcher, I sold last week. after playing 39 minutes against the Raiders, I didn't expect him to come out and play 80 again against the Storm in a losing side. But I do think as a whole, particularly when Victor Radley returns, he just basically goes to the bench and minutes will be an issue. Angus Crichton, as long as he's starting, he's a hold for me. He's an elite Supercoach player. What do we got? 3-round average of 74, 5-round 67. When he gets those 80 minutes, he's upped his base a fair bit after a sort of slower start to the year. Doesn't have a try to his name, a couple of assists, but we know he's so capable of attacking stats. But for him not to have a try this year, that's crazy, even for a big-bodied back rower. Barring getting benched, which could happen to Crichton, we've already seen it this year, he'll be in my team to the end of the season.
I like it. Next one comes from @JSpit2. Branko Lee, a good classic play. I'm a fan of Branko Lee. Good fellow. We've had him on the podcast. Good guy. He's won the left centre spot as it stands right now. For me, Branko, historically, he's been a pretty decent Supercoach player. He'll normally get 50 odd there. He's not a left centre for me. He's a right centre. He's a right-hand carry, left-hand fend. Doesn't work for me. And more importantly, I think Tessie New probably comes back in at left centre. Are you on the same sort of avenue?
Very much so. And Branko's another one in this category of Jazz Tavanga type players where every time they look a good buy, he finds a way for it to go wrong.
The cock teasers.
Yeah, the cock teasers. So Branko, even if he came out at like 80 this week against Melbourne, I'd be sitting there going, red flags, red flags, red flags. But look, with a break-even of 45, definitely not this week.
Also, this, obviously, with Herbie out, I think it makes Corey Oates a little bit more interesting. I haven't looked at his price or anything, but I will also say this. If Tessie New does come in at left centre, Tessie New's got glue on his hands. He will not pass that football to save himself, so he might find himself in the same spot. What's Corey Oates coming in at?
Corey Oates is 554K, so he'll sting you. Break-even 104, but averaging 56 for the season. And you're right, because Tessie's a bit of a glue hand, as is Herbie. But Branko, who I know, as you said, he's far more suited to the right with his offload, but loves an offload and will find a way regardless. Has a nice little tip on him. So if Branko could hold his spot, Corey Oates, cheeky little one.
He's worth keeping an eye on, I think.
And again, another one where just potential Origin with another 3-4 weeks from now in Origin 3, so wait on it. But yeah, I don't mind that at all.
Next one comes from @Adam Hobbs. Hobbsy, big fan of the podcast, has been for a long time. Do we keep an eye on Leilua over the next few weeks? 420K. This is a definite yes from me. It could be anything for Leilua over the next few weeks.
Huge watch. He's always been average 62 the last 2 seasons, so I do, as I mentioned earlier, just see him coming in and playing that probably the 50-minute role off the bench. Like, he'll basically be the exact same as Hylam Lukey. But if he does jag a bigger minute role in one of the best teams in the NRL, who are an attacking just juggernaut at the moment, the old Cows, and defensive, they're doing it all. Massive play. And particularly if there is an injury to either of the edge-back rowers, where good watch for, obviously, no Cowboys 17, but probably for after that, for the run home.
I think with Leilua too, he's obviously got a heap of upside, but he's never been in a team on the front foot.
Definitely.
Put him in this Cowboys side. If he manages to land an 80-minute spot, it could be anything. It is disappointing, though, and I think I mentioned to you at Origin the other night, Lume Lu, obviously available at C2W, jumped in the back row last week. Probably more so for draft than classic, but he could have been a really fucking interesting guy if it wasn't for this.
Yeah, that is a bit of a bugger, but still worth a monitor.
Yeah, I think I'd rather keep an eye on Leilua. I've got one more question, but I think I already sort of asked it before from Max. 8 can a season hold? Was sort of undecided on that. We'll see how we go the next few weeks with Volkman.
So if your team's in a position where you don't need to sell him this week, if he gets you a gun like Mulitalo this week, then I'd just pull the trigger. But if you don't need to do it this week, hold on to him and see how it pans out for after the rep round.
All right, captain options this week. Personally, I think if you pick anyone that doesn't rhyme with Schmaith and Cleary, you're in a bit of curry. I think he's an absolute must. Panthers, 5:30, Warriors. They showed up for the first 15 minutes as they tend to do last week, but surely this game's just going to be a step too far. This will break the fucking heart, won't it?
If 1 to 6 are getting tons for the Panthers, Cleary will get 200 in this one. So the one thing I will say about Cleary is he's playing a very, I suppose, a central halfback role where he's getting his hands one off the rack and he's just the first pass.
He's a bit passive at the moment.
In these big, long backline shifts. So, you know, not saying he's not as dominant. His impact is as significant on the game, but in terms of Supercoach stats, when they're swinging out the back, you're seeing your Tungos and your Luais and even to a lesser degree Dylan Edwards get a lot of try assist. So, he's a lock-in skipper this week. Vice captain wise, I'm lucky enough to have Nico Hines now at fullback, so I can VC Nico into C Cleary, which is good.
It's tough with Cleary because every time he does release the ball, he's always throwing it to such a talented player with so much upside that he does tend to lose a lot of TAs, whether it's a Tungo or kicker ball playing or your mate Stephen Crichton with his flick. It can be costly, but the goal kicking, insane.
Oof.
So good.
Give me a score prediction for this game.
I think 125.
You give me an NRL score prediction.
Respectfully to the Warriors, I think we could see 40 lotto here. Could be more realistically. That's the thing with the Panthers. If they're up 30-0 at halftime, they'll win the second half 30-0 as well. They don't fucking slow up at all. So, isn't it crazy that we're all saying Nathan Cleary's captain without a doubt? You got the Sharks playing the Titans, and we're not even looking at Nico Hines.
Who has a 185 in him with 11 blokes on his team.
Mate, that Titans side, they look absolutely fucking shot to me. I feel like there's not going to be much between Cleary and Hines, but they both could be in for monster scores. Papi, if he gets named at fullback, can you even consider it?
I can't, and as I said, it's because more so of my team set up, but even if I did have an avenue to get him in, I'd be waiting at least one more week.
Yeah. I guess the tough thing's going to be your vice captain this week, because I think the vast majority of us won't be able to VC Hines if we're going Cleary. I will probably be going back to the Scotty Drinkwater well and hoping against Manly can put on a show. But mate, the other one is Olakau'atu. He's been sensational so far this year. Come up against a pretty good defensive side of the North Queensland Cowboys. I don't know if I can do it. I know you've got a couple of the Bunnies boys. Thursday night versus the Dragons. It's appealing.
I've had, not because I've really wanted to a lot, but a lot of Cody Walker VCs, just because that's the way my team's been set up and the way the games have been on each week. He's just not looking that likely. So I'm pretty happy to put a line to him whenever possible. I think the other one is the Mad Dog Cam Munster up against Brisbane on Friday night. I know Brisbane are doing well, but it's another ball game playing Melbourne down at Amy Park. So I think Munster or even Harry Grant are huge options. But yeah, if I wasn't going Nico, I'd be going Cam Munster.
Matty, do your South Sydney Rabbitohs taking on the Dragons this week, do they put in a performance to be proud of, or are we getting more of South Sydney?
Well, more of South Sydney is not knowing what team gets off the bus, to be honest. So to answer that question, I have no fucking idea.
Yeah, I've missed the Cody Walker train this year, and I've got to tell you, I know he was cheap when it happened. I'm not overly upset about it. Yeah,
he's been waiting for 14 rounds for the Bunnies to click and Cody to come good, and since I've got him in, he's been a solid buy. But for those who didn't jump on, you haven't missed much.
Yeah, I had him in draft last year as my captain, and he came up with some good scores, but I think he averaged 80, and last season he had about 45 fucking tries. Yeah. Like, there isn't much more that could have gone his way last season, realistically. Still an 80 average, which isn't bad, obviously, but yeah, I think he's coming back. I will say,
we've lost to the Dragons twice in about 7 years. So
yeah, right, okay.
It's twice since 2013.
Getting confident, Matty?
Load up on Bunnies.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Love it.
Campbell Graham 150.
Well, that's the one that I was sort of thinking. Campbell Graham, I think he could be very appealing. I've made a bold decision, mate. I don't think I'm going to have Campbell Graham in my team anytime soon. Very bold. I guess if I'm not getting Graham and I'm not getting I've got to work out who the fuck I am going to get. So I might have to fold on one of those, obviously. But yeah, Campbell Graham, the draw over the next few weeks is good. Plays round 17, we hope, unless he gets picked for Origin, which I probably think he's at long odds too. After that, it is a pretty tough draw for him, but centre wings with base stats. How are you feeling about Campbell Graham? Is he going to be a hold to the very end for you?
He'll definitely be a hold to the very end. And I've said it about 5 times already this podcast, but by the time, particularly come round 18, when we're exhausting our last few trades, our CT dub, my plan of attack is always to stack that as much as possible so that the whole run home, I can just play them based on matchups. So if any of them have a tough game, let's say, Campbell Graham's very matchup proof because his base is ridiculous. But say he plays a tough game against Melbourne or Penrith, just sit him and you bring in someone like Katoni Staggs against the Titans, and that's a great way to aim, I think, for your run home and your team setup.
Yep, I like it. Anything else, mate?
think we've covered it all.
Done and dusted. Is rep weekend next weekend?
Yep.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. So we'll let you know if we'll have a Beers and Breakevens episode. If we do, we'll take a deep dive on round 17. But we will let you know what's doing there. Might take a week to put the feet up. Thank you for joining us once again, guys. Make sure you go check out the Supercoach Playbook, SC Playbook 1 on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere you can find them. Yep. Come and check out the Rugby League Guru on Instagram, podcast, whatever. Check out Matty on Instagram. He does some pretty rogue shit on the weekends. It's always a good giggle. And make sure you get out this weekend, buy yourself a case bloke in a bar. If you're driving home, grab yourself a midi. It is a cracking drop. Denon's got trackies and hoodies dropping next Wednesday, so not tonight, next Wednesday. They will go very quickly, so make sure you get your paws on those quickly. We saw some of them out at the live show. They look the goods,
They're belters.
Yeah, they are crackers. So make sure you get your paws on those very, very quickly next Wednesday. Best of luck with your Supercoach Classic this weekend. Make your captains go well, and fingers crossed Timmy can get into the top 100 next week. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you soon.